Welcome to the video, friends. Jov here. This is the Development Screencast. So far, we can detect when a user tries to create a duplicate account, and we are showing a proper error for that. But we are not showing errors when the device is offline or when we receive a backend error. So the agenda of this video is to get started working on that and hopefully finish that. So let's switch back to the code, and so this is what we are going to be focusing on. I'm going to delete what was done previously, but also here I think we also have to show the errors when the validation of the credentials is not working. At this point we are not showing any errors for that, and it would be nice if we show that. So we have to I just write here bad credentials error so we can also focus on that. So right now we can start with a test in the UI and then work towards the micro tests, but I think it will be a little bit of a less hassle to switch from the UI to the micro tests and then back. I think we can just for now start from the micro tests and then complete everything in the UI tests and then see what's left in the UI before we because later on we want to work on the cosmetics of the sign up screen to make it nice, to make it like smooth and feel good. So I think first we want all the functionality in place and then work on that. So I think in order to do that, first we have to cover these error cases. So let's create a new test here. So now we have create an account test and credentials validation test. So now we want to focus on the error cases. So let's name this something like failed account creation test, and I'm gonna close the panel on the other side, and we can start with a test. So as I said before, we want to focus on what happens when there is a backend error or when there is an offline error. So we can start with, for example, failed account creation test, backend error. So basically I'm naming this as like what happens when I end up with a backend error. Let's import the assertion, and here I would expect sign up date backend error. At this point I'm not thinking about because I still don't have a concept of like having separate error for separate failure of the backend, but I think it will be easy to refactor this backend error because right now it is an object. But if I, for example, end up with, if I need some mapping, let's say, as of like, let's say different error code to map into a different error, it would be easy to refactor later. So at this moment I just gonna have let's say a backend error, and that's gonna be sufficient. So that's gonna be my result, and the result's gonna be when I call the user repository create, well, let's in fact open the user repository and move it on the other side so we can see the API how it is. So we call the sign up, and then we pass their completely irrelevant data, because at this point I don't think it makes I mean, we just need to trigger the sign up. So we are just gonna say an email, a password, then in about, yeah, and then let's define this user repository, and that's gonna be a user repository, and then here I have to pass a, for now, in-memory user catalog, because that's the only thing that I have. I don't have different implementations of this one. Now let's define this object, the backend error, and that's going to be part of the sign up state, and it should also derive from the sign up state. Okay, now I have a compiling test. Let's see if I have the micro test selected and run. Now the idea is to watch this test fail. So I don't also have to care about the validation of these ones, because I'm directly working with a sign up where the credentials validation is in the previous layer. So at this point I'm expecting to have sort of valid email, password, and basically email and password, because that's the only validation that I'm doing. But at this point, as I said, I just have to pass something, but it's really irrelevant what I'm passing, because the behavior that I am going to be focusing on in these tests is not really it is not anyhow relevant to these details, to the actual parameters that I'm sending. So that's why it doesn't matter what I'm sending there. So now the error says that the expected is an error, but basically I am receiving a signed up, and that's because I'm having here the in-memory user catalog, and that's this one. So basically what I need to do now, I have a this failing test is sort of an evidence that tells me that I need to extract out of this sort of fake, I need to extract an interface, and then I can create different different variations of that interface that will, for example, let me mimic the backend error or an offline error and that kind of things. So basically we are gonna be able to make test doubles. So in order to do that, let's refactor this. So I'm gonna do a extract interface, and that's gonna be separate file, which is going to be, I'm just gonna call it user catalog. That's gonna be production code in the domain user, and it's gonna have only one function. The abstract function is gonna be the create user. That's gonna be the public one. Everything else is irrelevant. So now I have this interface. Let's see how it looks. All right. And I think I have to also, in my repository here, I have to, instead of the user catalog, the concrete implementation, I have to depend on the abstraction. Now let's run and make sure that we didn't break the other tests. And if we happen to do, we'll just revert the changes. But we are still in the same place. So basically we have this backend error. And now here in the test, now we are able to actually, instead of passing the in-memory user catalog, we can say unavailable user catalog. So I'm just unavailable user catalog. So basically that's gonna be test double that I'm gonna just create, and because it's relevant only in this test, I'm gonna keep it in this test. So it's a class that just derives from the user catalog, and now I have to implement this function. So basically the behavior that I'm focusing on is whenever a create user is being called, I want to be able to mimic a behavior that the backend, for example, would throw an exception. So in the user repository is the layer where I'm working only with my business, with my domain object. So basically there should be some sort of translation somewhere, probably in the actual implementation of the catalog that will translate whatever the backend's gonna be throwing, let's say an HTTP exception or some sort of whatever it comes back, to be translated into an object of my domain, and then so that layer will be completely replaceable later on. If I want to replace it, I'll just have to come up with a different implementation that will translate those, for example, errors or success or whatever, into my domain objects. So my domain will completely separated from that. So that's the idea. So for example, here, this unavailable user catalog will be able, I mean, that layer is also sort of responsible for translating those, and from there to my domain is gonna be thrown my domain objects. So because the translation happens on that side. So this is not a rule. Also, I have to mention this is not a rule. It's just sort of like it's up to you, and it probably depends on the complexity of the things that you are building, where you are gonna do the actual translations. So whether you can do that in the repository level or in the level below. So it's up to you, really. So let's see. So here we're gonna be throw let's say backend exception, and this is sort of my domain object that I will use to represent an exception that happens in the backend. So let's create that one. Extract to separate class, and that's gonna be part of my domain exceptions. Just a throwable, it's fine, I don't need anything else here. And now let's run the test and watch it fail. And now in fact we have a backend exception. Now we have to handle that one. So oops, that was a wrong shortcut. So here basically we have to say backend so when there is a backend exception, just return backend error, and that should work. Cool. So let's check this in first. Yeah, looks fine. Can detect an exception in the backend, and I think now I have to write down, because I don't want to forget, that I have to make this backend exception as part of my contract. So basically my in-memory user catalog, which is the fake, from that one I have to emerge contract tests that every other implementation will have to comply on. So basically the user catalog, any implementation of the user catalog will have to be able to translate whatever the backend is gonna be throwing as an exception, or like return as an exception, to be translated into my domain object, which is this backend exception. So let me write that down here. Backend exception should be part of the contract. Well, in contract. So I'm just gonna keep this here, and I will recall to make sure that that's actually happening. So we are clean here, and it is running. So next, let's focus on. So we have the backend done. Now let's do the offline. Okay, so that's gonna be a new test, and I'll say offline error. So assert equals the sign up state offline is the result. Oops. And the result's gonna be user repository sign up, and then put here again email, password, about. And now the user repository is gonna be a user repository, and now I'm gonna have let's say an offline user catalog. Right, so let's first image this one. That's gonna be sign up state, an object to represent that one, and the offline user catalog is gonna be a class, again relevant for this test, so I'm gonna keep it internally here. And in this case we are gonna be throwing I don't know, connection unavailable error exception. Let's create a class in our domain exceptions, and yeah, let's run the tests, watch this fail. And we have a connection available exception. All we have to do is just catch it here. Offline exception, which is a connection unavailable exception, and that's gonna be a sign up state offline, and that should work. Right, let's check this in. All seems good, and can detect when when device is offline. Now these two test doubles here that we came up with, they are just stubs. And the thing is that if we were using, let's say, a mocking library, it would have been easier to just say given the repository sign up, whatever we pass there would throw then the exception. So that's essentially what's happening here. Last thing I think I want to do is, maybe because I think I am used to when there is irrelevant details in the test but I have to pass, I just want to put them into sort of like columns around them, so that when I see the test, it tells me right away that it's sort of completely irrelevant things. I shouldn't pay much attention to that. So that's why I can just put like that. Everything should still work, it doesn't matter. And then I can just check this in. Made the irrelevant marked, actually irrelevant details in the tests Um, um, so mark the irrelevant details in the test for, yeah, I'm just gonna say mark the relevant details in the test. Right, now I think that's the complete test. We have also the implementation on this side, and I have to also write down here that the backend exception plus the connection unavailable exception to be part of the contract as well. And we are gonna be working on the contracts when probably we'll be implementing the backend calls. For now, I think we are fine with the fakes that we have, like which is the in-memory user catalog. And for now, I think we can focus. So this is basically done, and now we can work on the showing this in the UI. So when such thing is happening, like when we have an offline or a backend, we have to represent that error message in the UI. So that's gonna be what we are gonna be focusing on next. So I'll open the sign up screen or sign up test. Yeah, sign up test. And basically this is the UI test. So I would like to rename this one first. And I'll rename it into sign up screen test. I don't know, it is not particularly only for the screen, but it's sort of focusing on the actual sign up. But on the other hand, if I just say sign up test, I don't know. I think maybe just adding here the screen is just telling me that it's sort of part of the UI tests. Yeah, so I'm gonna keep it as a sign up screen test for now. Yeah, I think it's not gonna be, yeah, I think I'll just keep it as a sign up screen test. So let's check this in first. Oops. So rename the sign up test into sign up screen test. So we have perform sign up and display duplicate account error. Now also we have to show here the errors when, the other errors when the user types bad email, bad password, and offline and a backend error. So let's see. First, I'm gonna switch to the UI tests. I think I have an emulator running here. Let's run first the test and see where we are with the UI tests. Okay, now the problem here is we have no bean definition, basically because we have extracted the interface. Now our DI, I think the coin module, doesn't know, we haven't updated that one basically. So let's go ahead and update that one first. So first, in my application module here, instead of, we are gonna say that this is of type user catalog, and that's about it. And here the user catalog, the what we are overriding here is also a user catalog, right? Because that's the type, and the implementation is like what we are currently using here. So let's run. That should fix the tests. All right. So the two tests are working fine. And now let's see terminal. Yes, I think we have to check these two in. Updated the DI to define abstraction as a type. Rather than concrete implementation. Okay. Right, and then let's go ahead now and write a test. Oops, not the JUnit 5, unfortunately not available in the UI tests. Display backend error. So we're gonna be launch the sign up screen given the rule. Oops. And then we're gonna type email. Now here the email is important because it goes from the UI, so it will be part of the I mean the validation will be involved as well. Type email, say what do we have above? Alice, I don't know, Joe add friends, type password, Joe password, I don't know, something like that. And then submit, and then verify that the backend error is shown. Let's go ahead and create this backend error is shown. Create member function. Here. So I'll say rule on node with text backend error. Assert is displayed, and our backend error is gonna be a rule activity get string or string create account error. Could not create an account, something like that. So that's our robot. Back to our tests. Now the test compiles, but as a prerequisite, what we need to do is we have to update our. We have to sort of replace the catalog that we have, because right now in our DI we are using this in-memory catalog. So when I was talking about the dependency injections and why I have chosen the coin, this is the reason that I am able to replace a single component in the graph for particular test, which is not quite possible, or I didn't find it possible with the other DI solutions that we have right now available. So that's why I went with coin. So right now what I have to do is I have to, similarly to what we have here, I have to be able to replace only the thing. So here I'm gonna say first let's define a replace module is gonna be a module where I'm gonna have a user catalog, but here I'm gonna have a unavailable user catalog. Now it's pity that I couldn't reuse the same unavailable user catalog that I have in my other tests, because even if I extract it as a file in the tests, I won't be able to use it in these tests. I have to do something that I don't really like. Basically, in the build Gradle, I can define a shared folder for the both tests, and then I can have there this this type defined, like the unavailable user catalog. But I don't know. I'm not very big fan of that solution, and at this point, this thing is so small that I can just create a class here in this test. I want to keep the relevant things for a single test in the test itself. So I'm just gonna create it here. Typo. Available user catalog. That will derive from the user catalog. And it will just throw a backend exception. And what I have to do is I have to load coin modules, the replace module. That's sort of the prerequisite for the test. Now let's go ahead and run these tests and watch this fail. Make sure that it is failing. It is failing for the right reason, basically. And then we can focus on implementing that. Right, and now if I select that test, oh yeah, it says that the definition, you see, that is it is failing, but not for the right reason, because we have already a definition for the user catalog. We have to override it. Or I think, yeah, I think that's a wrong syntax. So I think the override should go here. Right. And now it says that it couldn't find the text. So that's the reason I want this test to fail for. And now let's go ahead and open the sign up screen. Basically here we are not handling that situation when the sign up state has that actual problem. So let's say if the sign up state, let's maybe, oops, this is not visible. Now I think it will be visible. So if the sign up state is backend error, then show an info message r string create account error. Okay, and now that should make the test pass. And it does, and that's great. So now let's check this in first. So what we have here is display backend error. So we can actually show we can yeah, show an error message in the UI when for a backend error. Okay, and now we have to do the same for let's show it a little bit up. We have to do the same for display offline error, and here I'm just gonna borrow this. So we pass the same, but instead, that's why I don't like the copy paste much. So here, for example, there are big chances that, for example, I don't update this thing here, the expectation, and then the test will bring me to a wrong direction. So here, instead of backend error is shown, it should be offline error is shown. Let's create that member function, and that's gonna be our a rule on node with text. Offline error assert is display, and the offline is gonna be the rule activity get string r string offline error. You seem to be offline. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm gonna reuse that error message probably across the app. So offline error is shown, and a prerequisite for this is that we have a replace module is a module with a here we need a user catalog, but we need to override it. And here we're gonna pass offline user catalog. Create a class here, and I just like to put it below because the usage of this one is above in the test above. So that's gonna be a user catalog. And what I have to do here is just throw a offline, not offline, but connection unavailable exception. Right. And here I just have to say load coin modules replace module. So one thing that I've done previously, which is very important, is the tear down. And in fact, let me move these ones below, because the tear down is just about below all the tests. So here we are resetting the module that we have. For example, here when we load the coin modules, for the next test, basically the module is gonna have this implementation, or like from the test before. So for example, if this test above runs first, then this is the actual user catalog that I will have in this test. But if this code was not there, for example, but this tear down, what it does, it just resets that back to default before, and that's really important. But because I've done that in some of the previous episodes, I don't have to care right now. So here is the setup. Let's run. I expect a failure. So as you can see, test driving this, the UI basically is not really very efficient. So I'm writing a test and then I'm trying to run the test and watch it fail for the right reason. And it takes significant time to run the test and to verify. I mean, way more than in the micro tests. So exactly, there is no such error. And then what we have to do to make this work is here else if sign up state is offline, then info message with r string offline error. And that's it. Now my UI test should work. And it does. That's great. So let's first check the scene. Show an error when the device is disconnected from network. Now let's maybe I like to extract this into a function. So basically let's extract this into a variable, then make a function out of this, and I'll name this replace user catalog with. So replace user catalog with offline user catalog, and now I can inline this one. And then the test reads way better. So replace user catalog with offline user catalog, then launch the sign up screen, type these things, submit, and make sure that the offline error is shown. That's what I want to do. And here instead I should derive from user catalog. I should expect user catalog, and then I can pass any user catalog to replace. And now I should run the test and make sure that I didn't break anything, but to save a bit time, running time, I want to do the same here. So basically this is the thing that I want to use. So I'll say replace user catalog with unavailable user catalog, and then expect this. And now I can run the test to make sure I didn't break anything. They are running a little bit slow as well. So that's also feedback that like you have to wait for this test to execute. So that slows down the feedback. And now I didn't break anything, it still works. Let's check this in. Let's just say removed duplication. Good. And now if we go back to our to-do list, the bad credentials error, they are the things that are left in the UI. So basically we want in our UI here to also show when we type bad email or bad password, to make sure that we are showing that as an error to the user. So let's go ahead and create a test for that. Fun display bad email error. Launch sign up screen, sign up test rule, type email, and then here we're gonna say anything. So we are not gonna email, we are not gonna include at and dot and that kind of things, and then just submit. And verify bad email error is shown. Create member function, and not known but rather shown. A rule on node with bad email assert is displayed, and the bad email is gonna be rule activity get string r string bad email error. So create string value. And then I'll just say maybe invalid email format, something like that. Okay, back to my test. Let's maybe run only that one, that particular test, so that we can save a little bit of time, because I think I'm running around 45 minutes. That's a bit too long. So we're not showing that error, and in fact that's the reason why the test fails. Now let's go ahead and fix that. So here, what we can do here in the email field, basically, we can pass here is error as a boolean, and then here after the value we can say is error is error. But also about the label, we can say the resource is if is error, then use r string bad email error, else this one, which is the actual email. Let's make it slightly smaller. And then here, instead of this, I'll just pass the resource. And now this error, I have to pass it from here, but I have to remember it as a state here. So I'll say var is bad email by remember mutable state of false. So by default it's not a bad email. And then here, email field, I would pass here the is bad email, is error, like that. So is bad email, and then here, the last step here would be, or maybe, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but because that's first of the things that is happening, the credentials validation, I'm just gonna keep it above. It doesn't really matter. If a sign up state is bad email, then mutate my state. So is bad email is true. Right? And now if I run the test, let's watch what's happening. So boom, invalid error, invalid email. Of course, that's what I wanted. And let's check this in first. Show a bad email error. And lastly, let's do test fun display bad email error. So this is gonna be display bad password error, because the password is also being validated. Launch sign up screen, sign up test rule, then type email, I don't know, job@friends.com, then type password ABC, and then submit, and verify that bad password error is shown. Create a member rule on node with text bad password. Assert is displayed. The bad password is a rule activity get string r string bad password error. The bad password error should be required. I want to make a small message but also describe what's the requirement. Required one cap one cap letter, one small, one required small, capital, digit, and special char. Something like that. I can improve that later. Yeah, it doesn't matter for now. So that's the bad password is shown. Let's run. So I'm running only that test for now, and it's like it fails because we are not showing anything, I guess. Yeah. So it says the text is not there, and then here I can do else if what did I do? Yeah, so here else if sign up state is bad password, yeah, I have to do the same. So first let's go ahead and for the password field here take a boolean is error, and here after the value say is error equals is error, and then for the label do the same thing. If val resource is if is error, then use r string bad password error, else r string password, and then here use the resource. Cool. Now we have to here pass the is error equals is bad password, and the is bad password is gonna be a is bad password by remember mutable state of false by default. So yeah, and here we have to say is bad password equals true, and now we are handling all of those. The sign up states, let's see, and I think, and now we are also showing the error message. I'm gonna run all the tests at once to see, I mean the UI tests, to make sure everything is still working fine. And I think now in the UI we have sort of a bit of state handling and the actual composables, and I would like to maybe make it a little bit nicer, maybe extract them somehow, or maybe at least, so now we have all of those tests working fine. Or maybe just pull them up here. And yeah, so that's gonna be sort of, and like make another composable out of this one saying like, I don't know, sign up form and that kind of thing, so we can have state and the actual composables. But that's sort of something that I would like to work on the next episode, because I think we're running too long for this one. But at least we have completed now the bad credentials error and the fail creating, and we can continue, as I said, in the next episode, sign up screen cosmetics, which is cool. Let's first check this in. Show a bad password error, and this one, let's push it to the repository, and I think that's gonna be it for today's episode. Let's go back here. So yeah, I think that was fun, that was interesting. It took us a little bit more time than usual, but yeah, thank you so much for the time and the attention. Hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next episode. Take care.